Hello, and welcome to Investor Analytics. We're in the business of helping professionals make better risk decisions. In today's video, we'll talk about two topics: the notion that everyone should have an allocation to commodities, and you say you're uncorrelated, now prove it. Let's get started with an asset allocation exercise. We'll look at a traditional 60-40 portfolio with 60% invested in equities and 40% in fixed income. We've normalized the value at risk to 100 units. We're going to investigate reallocating 20% of the traditional portfolio out of this 60-40 split and into three different commodity managers to see how the risk levels change with each of these scenarios. In the first case, the VAR actually increases, even though that manager has essentially no correlation either to fixed income or to equities. In the second case, the VAR drops when we reallocate to this manager. In this case, the manager has almost no correlation to equities and a modest but positive correlation to fixed income. In the third case, the VAR drops the most, from 100 units to 73. And in this case, the manager has a modest but negative correlation to equities and a rather large and positive correlation to fixed income. The lesson here is that there is no simple rule about correlations like it's always good to be uncorrelated. Specifically, with the original 60-40 portfolio, the fixed income book actually hedges the equity book because today those two asset classes are anti-correlated. As we saw, an allocation to the third manager drops the risk the most and does the best job of hedging that original portfolio. That's because that manager number 3 has a high positive correlation to the fixed income book, which does most of the hedging in the original portfolio. The takeaway is that it's not always appropriate to be uncorrelated in order to better manage a traditional portfolio's risk. Sometimes it's important to be correlated in a particular way. If you want to demonstrate your correlation or lack of correlation, there are basically two ways you can do this. One method, using old history, is called ex post, and a more forward-looking methodology is called ex ante. You could demonstrate your lack of correlation by looking at the last few years of realized historical returns, and then measure the correlation of your returns to some benchmark. On average, that correlation is correct in the middle of the window that you're using. So if you're using a 2-year window, your ex post correlations are correct on average about a year ago. If you're using a 3-year historical window, you're correct on average about a year and a half ago. But in both cases, these are historical numbers. More and more institutional investors are looking for ex ante measures of risk. Now, an ex ante measure of risk is much more forward-looking. It takes a snapshot of today's portfolio. It looks at today's positions and calculates correlations or volatilities from that information. This provides investors with required analytics that are more forward-looking. We hope you have enjoyed this presentation, and we look forward to seeing you at another one of our videos soon.